Hey, welcome back to the series How to Make Pokéclicker on Godot. In this episode, we will discuss the idea of having a database. Because obviously, a game like Pokéclicker has quite a huge database compared to what it actually looks like. We indeed need to store all the informations of all the Pokémons, then all the routes, all the gyms, all the dungeons, etc., etc. So I started by implementing a very simple, the light behind me, very simple, database structure. At the moment, I only implemented a base layout for the Pokemons and for the routes. Routes? Routes. Route. Um, so yeah, it's actually already done because honestly, making databases is like the most boring thing to do. So there's no need to have the whole process on screen, I think. But there has been a few changes in the encounter system, and that we will look into it. So let's start by, well, take a look at the Pokemon database actually. So before anything, I created a new folder in my scripts folder where I have the database models. So basically this just defines the model for each individual item of the database. For example, we have the Pokemon. Here we extend nothing, it's just a simple class which represent the database model of the Pokemon. And we have a few properties and a constructor. So the constructor is very basic, right? We just assign all the values which are mandatory. And at the moment, I didn't want to be going too far in whatever we need for the database because um, we never know how things are going, right? So I don't want to have the X steps, the male-female ratio, shiny, texture pass, blah, 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 blah. I just keep it simple. So at the moment we have the idea, which is the Pokédex idea. We have the name, some attack, and a texture pass. So I initially directly loaded the texture, but I don't know, really. Uh, I don't know if loading the textures right there is the way to go. Maybe it is, but I changed it for the texture path. Um, yeah, maybe I will change it back to texture if it's better. I actually have no idea right now. But anyway, once I had done this little model, what I did is in my game node, I created a databases node. All right. And in there, I actually created other nodes which are databases, but they don't appear right there because they are in the script, in the game script, where there is the initialization, where I initialize the Pokemon database scene and route database scene. So here I created this very simple initialized databases where we do have the Pokemon and the routes being added as children. So what do they look like? I went in the scenes, damn it. Yeah, and there I created a databases folder with Pokemons and routes. So I have a scene DBPokemon, which is basically an empty scene, right? Nothing to see here. But in the scripts, I have my singleton thing, as usual. I actually changed the way I check singleton. Instead of using Q free, I use free right away because I do believe that using Q3 might actually create some problems because it doesn't destroy the object right away. It basically puts it in a queue, which is not what we want to do, right? If there's a ref, we want to insta destroy it, which is why I think this one's better. Anyway, just to be sure, one thing we can do is have a return here so that we are very sure that we don't go in the ref itself. If whatever, for whatever. Anyway, what I did in this database node is I just created a dictionary, a static dictionary. So basically because of that, we could get rid of the singleton, right? Because at the moment the dictionary is static, we don't, well, there's only one anyway. But I don't know. Let's say it's a double check. So we have a dictionary. So right now, from what I found, Godot doesn't support static typing for dictionaries. So we can't say that we have keys which are string and values which are DBPokemon. That's kind of annoying. You will see why. Well, anyway, in my ready function, I just populate this dictionary. So at the moment, everything is hard-coded. So as you can see, the key in the dictionary is the ID of the Pokemon. So the ID of the Pokemon basically is the Pokédex number with enough zeros to be going up to 1,000 Pokemons, even though we will definitely not make 1,000 Pokemons in this series. And the colon 01 after it is the variant. So this is something in Pokéclicker you might have noticed. Pokemons have variants. Like, let's say, for example, you have a Gengar Pikachu, right? The Pikachu with a Gengar costume. That's actually a Pikachu, but the variant Gengar Pikachu. So they are both Pikachu, but one is 01 and the other is 02, right? So that's what is this little thing. Then we have the name. As for the attack, at the moment I just went very easy. That's just the stage of evolution. That's very lazy. And the texture path. So here, just to remind you, when you are getting the texture path is in there, you just want to drag and drop like this, right? You don't want to type it all. All right. So anyway, so here, right, we just, to populate the dictionary, we just get to a key which doesn't exist and assign to it a value. So that creates the key at the same time. All right. So right now we have 4 Pokemons, which are Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaur, and Mightyena. Yeah. So that's it for the Pokemon DB. Now let's take a look at the route model. The route model, here we have again something very simple. We have the ID of the route, we have the name of the route, and the encounter table. All right. So what it looks like when you go, well, sorry, I forgot to show you the route encounter. The route encounter basically just asks for a Pokemon and a weight. The weight basically is how often you will see it in a route. So yeah, let's go in the DBRoutes scene so that you understand it better. So again, we have the singleton check as usual. And here I only populated one route, which is route 1. So what I did is I made the encounter for 4 Pokemons to be possible. So we have 262, which is Mightyena, then Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaur. And there we have the weights. Okay, so The most common one is Bulbasaur, because we do have 6 Bulbasaur for 3 Ivysaur, 2 Mightyena, and 1 Venusaur. So basically right now, Bulbasaur should be common and Venusaur should be rare. But, there's 1, 3, 4, 10, 12. There's 12 Pokemons to encounter every time. So even though it's just 1 out of 12, right? So it's a little bit less than 10% to see a Venusaur, so it's still alright. So yeah, that's for the databases. Now, there have been a few changes in this component here. I do believe that I removed off screen the separation between objects, so I checked this. But anyway, it's not the biggest thing that happened. No, what happened is, yeah, I created 2 new properties. The total weight of the Pokémons on the route and a copy of the encounter table. Well, not a copy, I think it's just a reference. It's probably just a reference. From there, we need to initialize this value. So the value -1 basically means that it should not be -1 when it is used. So it is meant to be overwritten somewhere. And that somewhere is in the ready method when we initialize the route. So at the moment we only have 1 route, but later on we actually will able to switch route whenever we want, and every time we switch route we will want to go through a similar process as this one. Alright, so here is the initialize route method. So that's where dictionaries not being typable become a little bit annoying. As you can see here, we are just getting the reference of the encounter table. So we do get the key with the route 001 because that's the only one we have. And we have to cast it as a DBRoute to have the type and look for encounter table. So just to make things clear, if you do this, like you remove all this, it works very well. But the problem is, if you wish, there's no problem, but you don't have the type security and you don't have the autocomplete, right? So if I just get the dictionary here and start to look for encounter table, there's no tooltip here. Why, if I do have this one, I do have the tooltip here, encounter table. Then we have this warning, which is kind of annoying because since dictionaries can't be static typed, you have this value cast to DBRoute is an unsafe cast, so we can just ignore. Obviously, you can just get rid of the warning altogether. That's probably a thing. You can definitely do this. At the moment, I still don't know if I completely want to get rid of this warning. So what I'm doing is I'm just excluding it when it's necessary. So anyway, back to our initialize route thing. Here, we just reset the total weight to 0 because we will count the weight of the route. And we go through a very simple for loop. For each encounter in encounter table, we increase the total weight by the weight of the Pokemon. Very simple. Then the route is initialized, right? So I changed the reset method a little bit. So if I'm not wrong, all this part right there should be exactly the same as before, but the changes should happen here at the start. So the random integer for the Pokemon is now between 1 and the total weight. I created a property texture path, I believe. It didn't exist before. And we have a property counter, which is a local new property here. So what we want to do is that once we have the random value between 1 and total weight, we actually want to loop through the encounter table until we go far enough to find which Pokemon it represents. So we have the for loop, we increase the counter by the counter weight, the encounter weight, which is, wait a second, yes, the weight of the item in the list. Then we just compare the counter and the random property we found. If we are superior to the random weight we were looking for, then it means that we have found the Pokemon we want to choose. So from there, I grab the texture path of this Pokemon and I break my loop, this loop, I break it to go to the position where I go, all right, here the texture is going to be loading the texture here. So that's where actually I have a little bit of questions. Maybe we don't want to load the textures every time we generate a new Pokemon. Maybe we just want to load all the textures and choose between the textures when it's necessary. Well, anyway, at this point, we get the node texture rect and we assign the texture to the texture, right? Here we have a minimized amount of HP because I wanted to be able to cycle through the Pokemons faster. So yeah, now I am actually able to start this and have a lot of Bulbasaur, some Ivysaur, and sometimes a Mytina or a Venusaur. Actually, the Venusaur are definitely floating. That's, wow, why so many? Yeah, well, it's 1 out of 12. It could be interesting to run some scripts to check that the odds are even, right? The way I manage the weights and the random are a little bit, that's just the first idea that came to my mind, so it's definitely not the most optimal one. All right, so we are done with a little tour guide about how to make very simple databases, which are hard-coded in the game. They aren't necessarily the best options, but what I like about it is that it comes out of Godot right away, right? You don't need plugins, you don't need assets, you don't need anything. That's just the most straightforward way to do it. All right, so I hope you liked this episode. From now, you should be able to implement very simple databases, create your own Pokemons, and your own routes. Of course, we don't have yet the state machine that allows us to change routes and blah, 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 blah. But that will come pretty soon. Maybe in the next episode. Maybe in the next episode we'll take care of that state machine. If you're in a hurry and want to do this before I release the actual state machine episode, on the channel there is a video, Godot state machine. And to do this, I actually based it on the combat and capture loop of Pokéclicker. So you can go check there and try to make your own. So anyway, that's it for today. I hope you like this video, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.